Surrounded by the desolate post-apocalypse, our protagonist, Li Yunsheng, stumbles upon a hidden brothel. The moment he ventures inside, two ethereal beauties escort him into the dark basement. Deep underground, he discovers a den of elite hunters, just like himself alongside several captive women, shackled and prepped for some depraved games. Our main lead believes he's truly struck a goddamn goldmine. A seductive woman glides toward him, and with a mere handful of words, she charms him into entering a secluded private chamber. Waiting within the room, another girl lingers ready to join the carnal festivities. Li Yunsheng feels as though he's finally hit the ultimate jackpot. I'd suggest you don't watch this segment on the big screen, because while the brunette slips out for a brief moment, the sultry temptress wears a cunning, provocative expression that practically screams she's been wicked and begs for discipline after grueling years of doing nothing but slaughtering beasts. He's finally on the verge of a legendary night of ecstasy. Caught in the heat of the moment, our hero pulls out a jagged whip and lashes out without a shred of mercy just to ignite the spark before heading into a different kind of battlefield between the sheets. But in a sudden horrific twist, the woman's slender arm mutates into lethal claws, and she morphs into a hideous ravenous monster. Now that her monstrous true form is exposed, she let out a piercing, deceptive shriek for help. All the seemingly gorgeous girls swarm the area and begin their own grotesque transformations. The spider fiend boasts it has butchered countless scavengers in the past, while the little bee scoffs, thinking the kid can't take the heat. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but even in that form, I'd still be tempted to go all in. They launch a synchronized assault completely encircling him, but our lethal protagonist has spent this entire hellish apocalypse hunting demons, so he merely smirks, drawing a glowing talisman to unleash a devastating surge of lightning. In a matter of mere heartbeats, he's charred those seductive monsters into a smoking BBQ. Their panicked leader can hardly fathom the carnage she's just witnessed. The kid just decimated every single threat in the room, without even breaking a sweat or flexing his true powers. They had orchestrated a devious plot to lure victims in, promising they would serve up a feast. But in reality, they intended to feast upon the customers themselves. They just happened to be cursed with bad luck because our MC is a scavenger. Scavengers are an elite guild comprising powerhouse warriors with insane god-tier abilities and monstrous physical strength, specializing in nuking every kind of crisis in this ruined world. When the planet was decimated by nuclear fire, it was salvaged by the legendary Captain Fan Xiaoyu, forging the brutal world that he inhabits today. And leveraging his lethal skills, he's farmed a mountain of high-tier loot. He rips the energy core from the leader's chest, returning to his sanctuary in Jindu City, securing the entrance with a chain thick enough to bind a colossal behemoth, and drifts off to sleep while gripping his precious cores. But every time he closes his eyes, he is isekai'd into a bizarre cultivation realm crawling with dragons, towering skeletons, and nightmare-fuel beasts. That is his unique broken ability, and that is the secret to how he hoards so many rare items. A creepy doll-like entity was waiting there, bowing to welcome the sect master. Beholding this twisted landscape makes the MC recall the very first time he manifested in this world, waking up amidst a mountain of corpses drained of every drop of vitality, with shattered buildings, suspended and impaled by massive spikes right before his eyes. His head throbs as he inherits the memories of the original body's host, another bottom-tier nobody who spent his life scavenging treasures for the sect. The sect master masquerades as a benevolent saint, but behind the mask, he treats his loyal disciples like disposable cattle to feed his bottomless greed. After siphoning away everyone's life essence, they are tossed aside like worthless garbage. Our boy begins absorbing even more fragments of memory, but this time, it's an ancient elder explaining the glory of what the Golden Age used to be, a time when peak experts were living gods who ruled the heavens. The world in those days was brimming with legendary warriors and high-level cultivators. Demons and humans alike farmed EXP side by side without a hint of conflict. But then the world's spiritual energy completely vanished, and the world descended into absolute chaos and pure malevolence, to avoid a catastrophic game over. The Grand Leader invoked a forbidden skill to seal the entire stronghold within an energy barrier and buried the sect deep underground, awaiting the arrival of a legendary high-tier player to emerge and resurrect the fallen. How pathetic for the fallen gods of the past. Now only a swarm of twisted cultivators remain masquerading as followers of the light while devouring the souls and lifeblood of the innocent to level up. The original host of Li Yunsheng's body was a total weakling with practically zero combat viability. But moments before being sacrificed, he was entrusted with a jade bracelet and the coordinates to the sect's hidden sanctum. The mantle of this mission was passed down to Li Yunsheng along with those fragmented memories. Tracing the forbidden path, he ventures back to the mountain of corpses where he first materialized in this realm. At that exact cursed location, he discovers an abyss-like well, and the jade bracelet guides him as he descends into the dark. He reaches a truly nightmare-inducing sight and encounters a colossal abomination stitched together from ancient bones and pure unadulterated hatred. But our badass MC realized something. Li Yunsheng, confronts the titanic hand of the skeleton, and chants a secret incantation, left by the Elder to bypass the arcane security system. The boss's skull begins to radiate an eerie glow, before shattering into 1,000 fragments. Those monstrous, hideous heads revert into mundane skulls and begin to spiral, manifesting a dimensional portal shortly after. He steps through the gateway and suddenly traverses through the fabric of space and time. He channels his inner Netero from Hunter x Hunter, and then emerges into a pitch-black cavern with a subterranean palace looming directly before him. A crimson mist swirls, manifesting into the girl from earlier. She clarifies that a fragment of her consciousness had been imprisoned within the jade bracelet, and was only liberated once Li Yunsheng reached the temple. There she unveils the tragic chronicle of the original founder, a celestial being, Prodigy, who pioneered a forbidden cultivation technique fusing human essence with demonic energy. When the monster tide decimated the realm, he stood alone against an endless, bloodthirsty army, unleashing only 2 devastating moves. The first strike annihilated nearly every demon instantly, purifying the battlefield with divine light. The second move weaponized the fallen demons themselves to slaughter their own kin. However, the enemy horde was truly infinite. With his back against the wall, he sacrificed his very life to seal the entire valley. Before drawing his final breath, he cast the jade bracelet into the world along with a desperate message praying for a worthy successor to inherit his legacy. Now that the little fairy has finally awakened, our MC officially ascends as the new sovereign of this domain. It finally clicks for him that nuclear radiation and spiritual chi are essentially the same cosmic force. The little fairy inquires about the state of the world, but the MC only requests a quiet place to crash. She guides him to the sanctuary and vows to guard her master with her life while he slumbers. He shuts his eyes and drifts into the void. But the moment his lids snap open again, he's back on his familiar sofa at home, and the mystical bracelet has crossed over with him. Our boy has evolved into a trans-dimensional voyager through the power of sleep. He realizes that any object he grips while dozing off will be transported with him to the alternate world. He puts the theory to the test with a nuclear crystal, and the little fairy is nearly blinded by its raw concentrated power. She explains that this is precisely the missing catalyst required to ignite the rebirth cauldron. That relic is the most broken OP treasure in the sect's arsenal, and its purpose is to forge new physical vessels for disciples who are currently mere spirits. Their souls have been imprisoned there for a millennium, and now our MC is on the verge of commanding an entire legion of elite cultivators as his personal pawns. The boy is done waiting and commands the cauldron to be fired up immediately, dumping all his high-grade crystals into the flames. He even quips that it feels exactly like pulling on gacha loot boxes. But the little fairy warns him things are about to get absolutely insane. In the blink of an eye, the cauldron erupts into a violent inferno and a colossal fire phoenix surges from the burning embers. The explosion is instantaneous. Our MC barely parried the initial blast, but it was light work. A flickering silhouette emerges from the blaze, and the MC viciously seizes her by the throat. The lethal baddie is radiating heat and can't fathom why. This human hasn't been charred into a crisp yet. The curvaceous spirit immediately clocking that he's sporting the jade bracelet, while the MC just stands there sizing up his new asset. She recoils in sheer bewilderment, since the ancient master perished eons ago, questioning if this kid is actually the true reincarnation. She demands to know why she was summoned, and the MC declares the mission is to resurrect the fallen sect and reclaim the throne of the world. But she scoffs, claiming she has zero interest in such tedious matters. That's when the little spirit gets absolutely livid and chomps down on her head to keep her from losing her mind again. The woman snaps, screaming for everyone to drop dead, bellowing that no one can shackle her anymore but the MC. Holds the ultimate remote and activates the cursed soul chains to teach that defiant brat some basic manners. Witnessing the power of the chains, the little girl asks in awe how he mastered them. He realizes that every single soul trapped there is tethered to his bracelet, and the little fairy is paralyzed by the boy's sheer audacity. She warns that these lingering spirits belong to demonic lords who once dominated the heavens, and the only being they ever feared was the master. It appears that divine inheritance has been fully claimed by the MC. The MC tightens his grip on the soul chains, while the little fairy commands the cat girl to state her identity and purpose. She reveals she was once a legendary high-tier forging spirit, but our boy coldly threatens that if she's dead weight, he'll grind her into recycled nuclear crystal scrap. The girl spirals into a panic and starts hacking up all the rare legendary loot she had stashed away. Whips, talismans, and flying swords scatter everywhere, but the little fairy remains savage. Calling that mountain of gear mere scraps for beggars, the little spirit acts as if she's about to hand the poor girl a one-way ticket to oblivion, and the cat spirit begins to beg, swearing she'll do any dirty work to prove her worth to the sect. He finally accepts, but issues a chilling warning: one single blunder and she's erased. Returning to the present, our protagonist is locked and loaded to stress test the sect's ancient crafting system. He asks if nuclear crystals can serve as a viable fuel source, and the cat girl is absolutely floored by the raw purity of that DIY spiritual energy. In an instant, she's electrified to finally be back in the refining game. She ignites the ritual amidst the roaring inferno, channeling the forbidden lava refining, technique to transmute raw loot into pure power. The result, the Shadow Eagle Heavenly Talisman. With a bow, she presents the MC with his first rare tier artifact, but the MC dismisses the item as total mid-tier trash and immediately demands to know how to farm legendary drops. And the cat girl explains that for such god-tier gear, the mana investment must be absolutely astronomical. She pushes the refining technique into overclock mode, and this time a mysterious ancient seed manifests. The little fairy instantly recognizes the treasure and claims the fruit of that tree is top-tier broken stuff. But the sheer drain causes Hoya to collapse in a dead faint. The poor girl hasn't had a bite to eat in days and burned through every drop of her spiritual reserve to craft. So our main lead, refusing to leave her sprawled on the cold floor, cradles his new ally and lets her rest on his lap. She'll pull through, but now the MC has another hungry mouth to sustain. The exhausted girl is sleeping so deeply that not even the loudest apocalypse siren could rattle her. The MC notes that complex biological matter is forbidden from passing through the interdimensional portal. But then a brilliant light bulb moment hits him as he decides the most efficient strategy is to summon a massive workforce for backup. The little fairy can't quite grasp his logic, but who is she to second guess the new boss? The rebirth cauldron begins vibrating like a malfunctioning mixer, and out of nowhere, two titanic souls ignite a chaotic PvP deathmatch right inside the pot. It's a dragon versus a wolf, throwing hands for absolutely no reason at all. Our boy has zero patience for this, with this petty chaos, and instantly launches the chains from the ceiling to domesticate his two new waifus. At that precise moment, Hoya finally rouses and realizes the MC didn't waste a single second stirring up trouble. She recognizes both of the newcomers instantly and is absolutely floored by what she's witnessing. Our protagonist and the little fairy are left completely in the dark. So she clarifies that these are the legendary dragon sisters, the top-tier elite beauties of the ancient sect. She explains that the duo never saw eye to eye and are notorious for being polar opposites. And there they are, Kang Lulu, Lee and King Mingsha, shackled in chains and overflowing with sassy attitude. The little fairy finally snaps and loses her patience, barking at them both to quit the games and show some damn respect to the new sect master. The girl, cloaked in blue, decides to test if this kid is actually as talented as they say, getting so close that if it were me, I would have straight up forgotten my own name. She grazes him with her hand and scoffs that our boy is still a total noob regarding Taoist arts offering, to personally tutor him in the ways of dual cultivation. If your mom walks in the room right now, it's game over. But the feisty younger sister in red has zero intention of sharing the sect master with anyone. She brags about being a world-class elite assassin, and insists that she should be his official guide. But in a hilarious twist, she also turns bright crimson while stammering out an offer for a private lesson just like her sister. Hoya suggests they settle it with a duel to decide who truly deserves the sect master's favor. But both of them tell her to get lost without a second thought. The MC is done with the drama and declares the top priority is solving everyone's starvation. He reveals the legendary seed, and Mingsha nearly collapses when she identifies the item. Mingsha explains that this particular flora is incredibly bizarre, as it only flourishes in soil saturated with decaying corpses and negative energy, to guarantee the growth of divine fruit. But to pull that off, the MC requires a patch of cursed earth. The only solution is to venture into the gloomy realm, a place that, according to the host's original memories, is teeming with malevolent spirits hungry for his soul. He commands the girls to take a breather. And honestly, with a breathtaking view like this, I wouldn't even dream of going outside to fight. Our protagonist also requires to grind for more crystals in the apocalyptic wasteland. So he sneaks in another quick nap, but it seems like someone is hell-bent on ruining his rest. The MC jerks awake and sees the captain on the hologram, giving our protagonist a total earful for ghosting the radio transmissions. So he hauls Aachen straight to the Scavenger Guild headquarters to see what the deal is. The MC arrives at the entrance with a grim, panicked look. But the moment the system grants him entry, the scene is pure, unadulterated chaos with pizza boxes littered across every square inch. He charges in, screaming, fearing she's in mortal danger, only to find the boss lady lounging lazily on the sofa in the middle of the wreckage. Just look at the state of this absolute queen. If she shot me a look like that, I'd straight up forget that the world has ended. He demands to know where the good stuff she promised is. And I believe we've already discovered it. She stretches, with a sluggish elegance, as if she doesn't have a single care in the world regarding the trivialities of life, and suddenly recalls she has a high priority matter to discuss. The captain reveals she's secured a high-level contract, and is going to let our boy spearhead it to rack up some much-needed experience. It's a 2-star mission with a fat bounty attached, but she issues a preemptive warning that the lion's share of the profit belongs strictly to her. She speaks with a total air of superiority, declaring that since he's on the world's finest hunter team, there's zero chance he could fail. The MC gets incredibly hyped thinking about the god-tier upgrades he'll finally be able to craft and receives a casual thumbs up as if to say, "Now go handle that business." But the moment he asks for some advance funding to cover his overhead costs, her expression shifts instantly, and her wallet starts to feel the phantom pain. She hits him with a hard "hell no" with a completely shameless straight-faced look, arguing that with his elite monster tier physique, spending cash on extra weapons is a total waste of resources. Our boy knows the big shots in the guild are rolling in bank, but she just sighs and tells him he's still too naive. With a spicy camera angle like this, it's nearly impossible to focus on the dialogue, but the harsh reality is that she won't drop a single dime in the real world, because she'd rather blow her entire bankroll on consoles and rare character skins. It's a total bombshell. The captain is a degenerate gaming addict, and the MC is forced to hustle for himself to stack his paper. Regardless, he never turns down her high-stakes missions because, grind aside, he knows he owes his very soul to that beautiful lunatic. Our hero's backstory was an absolute nightmare. He lost his parents to famine and was forced into the scavenger life just to keep his heart beating. He was snatched by bandits and groomed to be disposable cannon fodder, but that entire gang became a buffet when a radioactive behemoth went on a rampage. The MC survived by a literal miracle, perhaps because he wasn't even meaty enough to be a snack. From that point on, it was pure hardcore survival mode dodging. Every horror trying to delete him from existence until he crossed paths with a pack of monstrosities that no one ever lives to talk about, just when he felt death's cold embrace. The captain descended and saved the day only because those monsters were lagging her ranked match. Snatching the boy by his collar like a bag of laundry, she ordered him to hit the corner and witness the carnage, while she wound up a punch brighter than a high-end gaming monitor. And after the dust settled, she realized this kid possessed some legendary RNG luck, so she scouted him for the squad. Fast forward to the present, the MC pulls up to the research facility on his hog where Dr. Shu and the greeting party are waiting. Dr. Shu welcomes our boy with more politeness than he knows what to do with, and immediately escorts him inside to ink the contract in a VIP lounge. The adorable girl serving tea is a top-tier perk you definitely can't knock, but the MC is strictly focused on the mission parameters. The doctor leads with a corporate sales pitch claiming this facility is a beacon of charity, a sanctuary for beastmen discarded by a cruel society. He highlights how these outcasts are hunted down like vermin purely out of blind prejudice, and his mission is to purge their feral genes and restore their humanity. Everything seemed to be running smoothly until a massive complication emerged to ruin the entire operation. A monstrous nuclear-charged behemoth decided to siege the research facility, locking the place down so no one can escape. But right in the middle of his briefing, the ceiling nearly buckled under a sickening screech. Dr. Shu flipped out because that nightmare fuel had returned. But our main lead leaped into action, ordering everyone to take cover. The guards outside were just burning through ammo uselessly. And when the MC witnessed the scale of the disaster, even he nearly froze in his tracks. It was a colossal titan snake. The captain had fabricated a lie straight to his face about this mission's rank. This beast's scales were heavily armored. So the current objective is to bait its aggro away from the base. He strolls past a guard and casually asks to borrow a grenade. But the MC swiped his entire stash instead, leaving the guy speechless. Our boy hurls the explosive gift straight at that lady's face to force her to focus on him. It takes the blast right on the snout, and our protagonist immediately redlines his bike to lead her on a deadly little stroll. The beast is absolutely blinded by rage, pursuing the MC straight into the depths of the canyon. Grenades rain down from every direction, and the boy is almost moved to tears because he's finally using ammo that isn't being deducted from his own bank account. He had the kill zone prepped at Chaos Canyon, and told the snake to enjoy this special gift combo. It was finally hemmed in by explosives on all sides, and Grilled Reptile was officially on the menu. The MC channeled his next devastating strike using the kinetic energy from the blast and lunged in with a lightning-fast slash. He tore through the serpent's hide in a streak of pure electricity. But the moment he landed, believing he had secured the kill, he spotted a peculiar eerie blue glow radiating from the gash. The wound began to close at Godspeed, and within a matter of seconds, the monster looked like it hadn't taken a single scratch. Our boy stood there utterly dumbfounded at that lady's ridiculously broken regeneration stats. The monstrosity, the massive serpent, refuses to give him a moment to breathe, and instantly unleashes a torrent of lethal venom to prove that it plays absolutely dirty. The MC scoffs, complaining that the monster is a straight-up cheater because that blue spray is pure concentrated acid. That corrosive sludge dissolves everything in seconds, and our boy is soul-crushed witnessing his bike get completely wrecked. Now the beast is going full throttle, and the MC is forced to play his ultimate trump card, the Shadow Eagle Talisman. Manifesting those majestic new wings, the MC decides that playtime is officially over. He nosedives like a lethal guided missile, focusing entirely on grinding this monster into a pile of high-grade loot. The devastating strike. perforates the serpent, leaving its body riddled with holes. The creature is shrieking in agony, and our boy declares that the party is finished. But suddenly, he detects something bizarre. The giant snake is weeping. He hesitates for a split second. And as the dust finally settles, the monster has morphed into a snake girl. If it were me, the mission would end with an immediate white flag. He realizes she's actually a sentient beast human. But duty is a cold mistress. He cannot afford to hesitate. Mission accomplished. All that remains of the beast is a severed tail to serve as proof of the kill. With the tail secured, Dr. Shu instantly wires him a fat $20,000, the MC. Suspects that such a colossal monstrosity spawning in such a tranquil area is sus, but the doctor brushes it off, claiming mindless monsters frequently get turned around. To help him unwind, the man offers him 2 special assistants. But our guy isn't some naive rookie and asks if the doctor's trying to blackmail him with this illegal honey trap setup. He swears it's purely out of gratitude, so the MC demands an immediate assembly of all the Institute's maids. The doctor scurries to organize the festivities, convinced the MC is a total beast in every sense. Our boy gathers the entire harem to ensure the lineup is flawless, and they all declare they are ready to serve. If it were me, the recap would peak right here. But the MC claims he's not interested in those games and activates yet another mystical talisman. He electrocutes the entire harem with a surging lightning shock while Dr. Shu retreats to his macabre lab. Macabre lab. This lunatic has a secret stash of preserved beauties and vats. He approaches the main capsule and begins whispering to the mutants like a doting, twisted father figure. But our boy was right on his tail, and the doctor tries to ban him from the server by shrieking directly into his face. Our MC is done with the bullshit and punches the old man into early retirement with 1 strike. He even spits out a few teeth, but reveals that he already slammed the panic button to summon backup. The doctor commands the maids to hunt him, but the MC shows that he already shattered everyone's collars. The old man completely glitches out on the spot. Now his former harem has evolved into our hero's new squad, and he's already clocked that the Research Institute was merely a front for kidnapping girls and torturing victims. He exploited those poor girls as disposable lab rats for his forbidden experiments. The tables have officially turned and the girls are bloodthirsty for revenge, while the doctor tries to trigger a tragic flashback, swearing he once aimed to liberate the hybrid girls from systemic oppression back in the day. This old geezer was a total powerhouse and settled every dispute with raw force, beating down anyone who dared mistreat hybrids. He viewed himself as a holy savior and adopted an entire orphanage of beastmen to find a cure. This man was a prodigy and was inches away from decoding the secret to restoring their humanity. But then the entire project went south. One of the beasts went full berserk and turned the sanctuary into a slaughterhouse. His wife was killed and his daughter's life was hanging by a single thread. To keep her breathing, the financial cost was astronomical. So he traded his very soul to the mafia to cover the medical bills. He morphed into a fake master of forbidden alchemy and began harvesting tainted essence by selling the life force of those tragic girls on the black market. His ultimate endgame was to splice beastly genes into his own daughter to resurrect her from the brink. But locating a compatible biological match was like grinding for a god-tier legendary item with a 0.1% drop rate. Then he discovered a perfectly compatible host. She was the final missing piece of the puzzle. But before he could finalize the procedure, that monstrous serpent invaded the facility. Now it's crystal clear why the old geezer was so desperate for our MC to clear the stage. Even with shattered teeth, the lunatic grins like a psycho, because the path is finally wide open for him to initiate the final forbidden experiment. The system confirms the sequence and the curse summoning ritual ignites. The laboratory transforms into a radioactive hellscape drenched in overwhelming green energy. Our protagonist commands the maids to rescue the remaining captives immediately, because if the power grid fails now, the entire facility is going to be toast. But then he spots something macabre. Raw flesh begins fusing together like wet clay with agonized faces, melting into one another while the doctor hails his success. But the MC senses this update is fatally glitched. That abomination is becoming grotesquely deformed. The system triggers a critical error and the biological vessel is rejecting the fusion due to that minuscule 0.01% genetic deviation. The subject is mutating into a radioactive blob and Dr. Shu is spiraling because his life's work just failed miserably. The containment tank begins to fracture, and a monstrous hand punches through the reinforced glass. She is primed to annihilate this entire lab, and the MC confesses he only severed her tail during their previous skirmish to test if she was truly a mindless predator. Viewed from that perspective, I finally understand why the MC wanted to uncover her origin story. The chronicle begins in the radioactive wilderness where the serpents received a massive evolutionary buff, and this young girl decided to explore the human territories. Dr. Shu was once this girl's childhood idol. As she grew up seeing his face on every propaganda sign, billboards plastered throughout the city, she yearned to repay his perceived kindness. So she and her sister decided to pay him a surprise visit, but their welcome was a total nightmare. They walked straight into a lethal trap. Amidst the sheer panic, the White Snake Sister shattered a batch of forbidden serums, and the result was such a grotesque mutation that it transformed her into a terrifying raid boss. She regained consciousness in her colossal form within the woods, and now was only returning to the facility to rescue the young girl without harming a single innocent soul. The MC exposed the fraud, revealing that the self-proclaimed savior was the one exploiting the girl from the very start. And the old geezer is horrified to see his legacy crumble. The mutated sister, consumed by a fit of primal rage, completely obliterated the laboratory. Cut to the captain, jolting awake up with a look like she just got demoted to bronze overnight. And there was the green snake girl, decked out in a maid outfit, greeting Fan Xiaoyu, who froze in place, trying to calculate where this kid even spawned from. Our hero remains cool as a cucumber, claiming the mission was a total breeze, and he even brought back the ultimate final reward. The White Snake's onslaught actually reset the doctor's botched experiment, and his daughter rouses amidst the wreckage, revealing the dark truth that humans were the ones who slaughtered their kin. At that precise moment, a sinister tentacled shadow lunged at the entire group, and the hybrids fought until their final breath to shield the girl. The old man finally realized the supposed monsters were actually the ones with humanity. But the lab's power grid flatlined, and the girls were on the verge of collapse without life support. That was when our boy unleashed his final lightning talisman to serve as a makeshift generator and salvage the entire squad. He burned through all his legendary tier items, and that's exactly why he's currently lounging on the captain's sofa with a child cradled in his arms. Fan, Xiaoyu can't fathom that the mission reward is a pint-sized beastman, and with that stunned look on the captain's face, I honestly can't focus on the mission report either. The MC is transfixed on the little girl's hamburger, calculating just how much EXP she's going to farm. The captain is busy evaluating the potential of this new skin. While the little girl's only concern is stuffing her face, the MC realizes that look signifies trouble is brewing. The moment Fan Xiaoyu starts smirking, she cuts straight to the chase. There's zero room in the squad for those who don't grind, so the little girl is immediately drafted as an intern. After settling the logistics, our boy heads to bed, grasping the legendary crystal dropped by the boss. He rouses within the spiritual lobby and is instantly startled. Hoya manifests out of thin air, insisting she requires dual cultivation to buff her stats and restore her fading strength. Our protagonist freezes on the spot, wondering if the story just did a hard genre swap. The MC violently slams the colossal crystal onto the table and demands results. While the beauty begins refining with high-tier soulfire, the process is visceral, and the raw energy fashions the darkness right before our hero's eyes. The item recognizes the MC as the admin of the server, and the armor fuses directly with his arm. Truly the radiant aura of a premium cash shop item, and just look at the drip with this new skin. The gear massively buffs his agility and even conceals a hidden secret skill. But witness the pathetic state Huoya is in after burning through her entire mana pool. The dual cultivation leaves the beauty begging for mercy. The scene is truly god tier, but the staggering beauty has collapsed onto the floor, gasping that 5 rounds in a row is her limit. If it were me, the server would stay online 24/7. The MC instructs the Forging Spirit to take 5 and decides to tap the Dragon Sisters for the heavy lifting. Kang Lulu Lee is absolutely hyped for the chance to leave the lobby. They reach the threshold of a pit overflowing with corpses, and the beauty leaps from the teleportation gate, relishing the fresh air, or at least the closest thing to it. Mingsha instantaneously initiates complaining about the putrid stench of the rotting dead, but our guy tells them both to cut the act. She samples the soil to inspect its quality, but the result is total trash. The earth is parched and useless for the divine seed. Suddenly, the beauty's danger sensors go haywire. She instantly yanks the MC into the shadows, as an elite, grotesque abomination just materialized atop the mountain of corpses. The monster elongates its neck like some cursed giraffe, and descends to scout the perimeter. Detecting no intruders, it retreats to avoid provoking the local area boss. The moment the creature vanishes, our protagonist reappears among the dead, deactivating the invisibility shroud that saved their skins. He deduces that it's harvesting human tributes for its master. This sparks a brilliant idea in our hero's mind. And just witness the scale of that floating fortress. That is exactly where the cursed fertilizer required for their farming is stashed. The strategy is to infiltrate the ranks of the cultists and walk right into the lion's den. Kang Lu Li wears a devious smirk, remarking that the most perilous location is their ultimate safe haven. Kang Lu Li flashes the grin of a mastermind, tightening the chains to make the charade more believable. The monstrous priestess departs, convinced she has successfully secured the day's human sacrifice. The two sisters are desperate to tag along, but our boy shuts them down immediately. If they follow, they'll surely compromise his stealth mission. He navigates the corridor, which is riddled with lethal traps like a buggy server on a major update day. The objective is straight ahead, but suddenly his survival instincts start howling. Feast your eyes on the size of that behemoth. If that isn't the final area boss, then I'm just a low-level tutorial NPC. The monster is sniffing the atmosphere, utterly perplexed because it detects a human scent yet cannot spot a single soul. Our boy seizes the opening to slip away in feline form before his invisibility mana pool hits 0. He stumbles into a bizarre chamber, where a handful of ancient zombies are herding everyone toward the next floor. Except the entrance is a gaping maw in a wall of pulsating flesh with thousands of severed hands clawing to drag you into the abyss. The MC instantly pieced together the horrific reality. This immortality promise is nothing but a total bait to lure gullible newbies to their inevitable deaths. That abomination is a colossal sacrificial furnace constructed from tormented souls and chains. Finally, he locates the cursed fertilizer that he ventured into this hellhole to secure. The cat begins harvesting the resources but suddenly detects a soul fire that paradoxically burns and freezes simultaneously. Out of nowhere, our protagonist loses his equilibrium and begins hovering against his will. The furnace is devouring his essence, and our boy is in a state of absolute panic. The situation has turned critical for the kitty. His cat form mana evaporates at the worst possible moment, forcing our hero back into his human body. He is completely blindsided. The suction from this tower is insanely overpowered. And if he doesn't pull a miracle right now, he'll be processed into mere fuel for the furnace. But amidst the absolute carnage, the MC spots a peculiar radiance, a spectral girl manifests out of thin air, whispering to ask if he can perceive her. Our boy is stunned. How can a stray soul linger here without being instantly refined? She warns him to stay silent because the area boss will detect the slightest tremor. She reveals that she is actually the furnace's spirit and immediately presents our MC with a high-stakes bargain. She's looking to jump ship, and our boy is her one-way ticket out. The girl identifies herself as Zhao Yuan and claims she used to be the most legendary artifact of a sect specializing in grinding monsters into high-tier EXP pills. That grade of loot grants game-breaking buffs and even celestial tier abilities. But her golden era is history, and she fell into the clutches of a high-level antagonist. The self-styled ancestor imprisoned the poor girl with a divine needle to mass-produce evil elixirs. She's fed up with this spiritual servitude and vows to become an elite support asset for our protagonist if he shatters her shackles. The MC quickly weighs the risks of the bargain. He realizes that the massive pillar that nearly devoured him whole is actually the cursed needle, piercing right through the catgirl's chest. The cat girl explains that the colossal spike is the very seal pinning her soul down, and our boy immediately enters panic mode, protesting that he didn't infiltrate this place to exploit her beauty. He simply had no clue how to aid her. The sigil on his belt flares to life, and he yanks Zhao Yuan toward him so she isn't dragged back into the furnace's core. Our protagonist activates serious mode and manifests a shadow mechanical arm to assist. He summons a legendary Titan-sized greatsword directly from his inventory, and it plunges downward, obliterating the malevolent chains. His gaze is locked firmly on the loot. To finalize the extraction, the MC whips out the lash of truth and begins lashing the cord around the pillar to wrench that massive spike out of her grasp. Our boy has hit his physical limit, and Zhao Yuan begins to spiral into worry. But then he consumes the ultimate buff pill refined by Huoya. Using a high-rarity consumable really hurts his soul, but acquiring a support waifu who generates infinite loot is a god-tier investment. He tosses the item into his mouth, and the beast enters full berserk mode. His raw power stat multiplies 100-fold. His body temperature skyrockets so much that even the cat girl is shocked as he heaves the pillar aside and shatters the seal with a brute strength worthy of a top-tier pro, letting out a roar that rattles. The entire server, Zhao Yuan, is finally liberated from the chains and instantly lunges onto our boy's neck, vowing her eternal loyalty. Talk about a legendary upgrade. Our protagonist has successfully secured the ultimate main loot, the furnace that converts demons into EXP pills. His inventory is now officially stacked, but the critical issue now is how to extract from this map alive. Out of nowhere, an elite monstrosity with a nightmare visage materializes behind him, demanding to know who the thief is. It's a freakish priest, resembling a sketch straight from the pits of hell with a giraffe neck. The MC completely freezes because the ruckus from the battle alerted someone who definitely should have stayed asleep. These abominations are high tier and crave human bone essence to ascend their rank. The monster recognizes our boy from somewhere. It unhinges its gaping maw and demands to know how a low-level scrub managed to bypass the needle seal. The MC toggles on smooth talker mode and feigns offering up a legendary treasure in exchange for his life. The monster takes the bait and leans in to inspect the loot, while our guy is just waiting for the perfect opening. The MC exploits the monster's lack of guard and charges a devastating punch with the maximum buff of the pill to unleash a blinding light beam that cleaves across the map and deletes its HP bar. The monstrosity collapses onto the dirt. Our hero spots a radiant glow emanating from its carcass and immediately rushes over to check if the loot drop is legendary tier. Zhao Yuan identifies it as Golden Marrow Bone, where pure EXP is stored. The boy is reeling from hitting the absolute jackpot, but he has no clue how to utilize such a high-level endgame item. So, the Spectral Cat Girl instantly claims the bone for herself, and the MC has to accept that the loot belongs to her now. The buff duration finally expires, but the mission was an absolute win. Fertilizer secured and a bonus support item in his bag. He reverts back into a cat to sneak away and regroup. All that remains is the monster's corpse on the ground, and it perished without ever knowing why it got soloed by a total newbie. The monster's soul mutates into a freakish fly, swearing vengeance as it buzzes off to locate a new vessel. Back in the lobby, the Dragon Sisters are bored to tears, waiting for our guy to finish his farming run. Mingxia spots a sinister entity creeping closer and is instantly primed to pulverize the intruder, but the creature evades and decides that Li Yuli's physical vessel will be its next skin. A fly perches on the cat girl's cheek, and her sister doesn't waste the golden opportunity to slap her right across the face. Li Yuli jolts awake with a massive handprint. Convinced an earthquake just hit, Mingxia freezes, sensing that her master has landed in deep trouble and the real warfare has begun. But Li Yuli immediately calls her out, her sister, for acting suspicious and concealing the loot the fly dropped. The entity over there is shrieking in pure agony. They suddenly sense a suffocating boss tier aura closing in, and this grotesque colossal Buddha statue smashes through the ceiling, inviting them both into his private chamber. Li Yuli decides to play nice to buy some time and backstab the fat pig later. The creature actually becomes emotional, thinking it hit the jackpot, but Mingxia has zero patience for the drama and immediately delivers a vicious kick to the freak's skull with an elite combo. Her sister is baffled by the total lack of tactics, but the redhead only cares about obliterating the boss. Li Yuli accepts that their current cultivation levels are straight up trash and decides to rely on the premium shop items the MC equipped them with. Mingxia instantly whips out a grenade, mistakenly thinking it's a healing consumable, and is completely mesmerized by the immortal pill glowing brighter than a legendary skin. Her sister lets her keep the high explosives while she concentrates on her bow and arrows. The redhead is absolutely hyped for her new toy, but the fat lord definitely didn't appreciate being kicked, and his eyes ignite with pure unadulterated hatred. The monstrosity enters phase 2, sprouting countless arms. Like a glitched out raid boss, both sisters realize the stakes have skyrocketed as the monster unhinges a void where its mouth should be ready to swallow the entire server. Mingxia orders Li Yuli to escape and locate the MC while she holds the line against the boss. Li Yuli gets choked up and warns that her sister better not die before she gets payback for that slap. Mingxia realizes she can't tank the boss's massive hits head on, so she decides to swallow the spiritual grenade whole, and predictably that thing detonates and the girl is reduced to cinders while the colossal beast lunges with its maw unhinged. The dragon girl is officially cooked. While the entire scene descends into chaos, Li Yuli bolts to locate the MC and bring back some heavy backup. And the moment she senses her sister's aura flicker out, she finally lowers her guard. Because you don't become a top-tier legendary assassin by fluke, we witness the redhead's inner consciousness, and the soul of that parasite monster emerge and cackle, believing the tables have finally turned. The creature aims to capitalize on her vulnerable state to devour her essence and hijack her physical vessel, but the takeover flops when it feels a crushing pressure from behind and a darkened, corrupted version of Ming. Sha materializes, gripping the insect like a piece of garbage. This new persona takes a sick pleasure in pulverizing worthless ants, and is itching to seize absolute dominion over this body. She immediately hunts down her original self to finalize the hostile takeover. The mental battlefield enters its final phase, and the two consciousnesses go head-to-head in a death match. The original Mingxia is snared in a sea of clutching hands, looking completely dazed. She screams as if her very soul is being reformatted by the system. Meanwhile, back in the physical realm, the boss starts feeling a major stomach ache. The fat pig thought he scored a free girl dinner, but his digestive tract is about to protest violently. Suddenly, a fist from the inside erupts through his chest cavity. The beast starts detonating into a flurry of arms, resembling a bizarre graphical glitch, and the one bursting through his guts is Mingxia in dark mode with a lethal purple aura. She wears the twisted grin of someone who just inherited a maxed out whale account. All that remains scattered on the dirt to tell the story is the wreckage of the boss's limbs. Ming He is completely baffled by the bizarre loot dropped by the boss. She heartlessly pulverizes the ocular hand with her heel because there's zero tolerance for cursed trash in her inventory. Now she's determined to figure out exactly where the server spawned them, while meanwhile, the severed fragments of the hand begin slithering across the floor as if possessed. That grotesque entity tries to flee and retreat into a pitch-black corner. But look who enters the frame, the spirit explains. That it's the core foundation of the 100 Beast diagram, a legendary item that has no business lying around here. In the meantime, Li Yuli is trapped within an endless labyrinth. She bolts and bolts, but the corridor appears to be infinite. And from this spicy camera angle, we can clearly see that her leg days at the gym have definitely paid off. Lee Yuli realizes she has walked into a lethal trap and the tension has officially reached its breaking point. Right in the center of the hallway, some mysterious guy appears in a deep meditative stance, acting like he's the absolute admin of the server. Lee Yuli is instantly on high alert, unsure if he's a spectral phantom or just an elite tier monster. She isn't interested in wasting breath on small talk and immediately draws her bow for a decisive preemptive strike. The arrow is unleashed with maximum velocity, illuminating the entire corridor in a flash. The projectile pierces straight through the guy's skull, but the damage doesn't even register on his HP bar. That freak doesn't even flinch and warns her that she's begging to be deleted from existence. Suddenly, his body distorts like a terrifying animation glitch, and he manifests right in her face asking if she has a taste for illusions. A devastating punch connects right with her chest, sending our girl spiraling back coughing, up blood, and feeling the sheer force of that god tier combo. The boss demands to know her business on his map, but Lee Yuli responds with nothing but pure mockery despite her battered state. He doesn't even blink. That creature has long since abandoned its humanity to become a living nightmare, pinning our girl down with a death grip. Zero chance to evade, he looks exactly like a secret boss from a psychological horror game. The old man's corrupted soul growls that her life no longer possesses any value, while she's still breathing and initiates a soul harvesting sequence. To him, devouring her essence is the ultimate legendary loot drop. If the MC doesn't pull a miracle right now, she's destined to become nothing more than monster fodder. Lee Yuli is being consumed by this pulsating mass of flesh, and it's looking like a definitive game over. But suddenly, the entire reality shatters, and the old geezer realizes that he's the one who walked into a lethal trap. Our girl rematerializes, completely unscathed and sporting a god-tier hitbox that even our MC would have to respect. She scoffs, claiming his pathetic technique is nothing but a bottom-tier knockoff compared to her original version. The monstrosity boasts about being a grandmaster of illusions and tries to scout her for his dark guild. But she doesn't take recruitment offers from the dead, and he instantly unleashes his ultimate hidden technique to end the match. The boss goes full aggro with that grotesque multi-armed vessel, but Lee Yuli simply shuts her eyes and begins channeling her ultimate ability, swapping skins in a flash of ethereal light. She manifests as a soul-devouring heavenly demon wreathed in blistering blue flames. The old man flips out, convinced the dragon race had been deleted from the server long ago. There's zero time for a tragic backstory. She's already winding up her next devastating strike and lands a hit so violent the screen turns into a blur of shadows. The creature still tries to maintain his tough guy act, claiming she already spammed that move to no effect. Little does he know that the fatal debuff procs have already been triggered. The bosses. Skull detonates in a violent eruption of dark energy, and our girl hovers majestically above the carnage, proving that even a high account level can't outplay a legendary tier skill. Lee Yuli declares that the blood dragon is the hard counter to every illusion in the game, meaning the boss was dead the second he was tagged. That abomination's physical form splits apart to drop its measly quest item, a severed lizard tail. No wonder the guy was acting so cocky. His entire build was a total meme. Meanwhile, the atmosphere shifts to a blood red tint and Mingsha starts hearing spectral voices as if some bot is spamming curses directly into her brain. It's a massive mental corruption debuff. She's reeling from the agony and reaching critical overload. Our boy makes his entrance at the perfect moment clutch and catches the redhead before she hits the deck, while the boss's lingering eye remains tethered above, silently observing the entire unfolding scene. He becomes pensive, struggling to comprehend that sound or where Lee Yuli vanished to. The tiny celestial fairy materializes before the MC with a dire warning. The ancient ancestor Wu Tong is rousing from his deep hibernation after harvesting a staggering quantity of blood essence, and that monstrosity is a literal living nightmare. Our protagonist tenses up, fully aware he's not ready to raid this boss yet. But the girl insists she has a strategy and requires his assistance for the ultimate co-op play. She blushes while revealing the specific method, and if that's truly the endgame, then our boy just struck the absolute jackpot. The MC nearly stumbles upon hearing the plan involves duel cultivation in the middle of this absolute carnage. She doesn't even pause for a response, and dives straight into his psyche to initiate the fusion. Suddenly, the physical realm shatters, and our boy is cast into a mental landscape that resembles a high-tier luxury lobby. She clarifies that this is the solitary sanctuary where they can perform this power-up, since she remains nothing more than an artifact spirit in this spiritual dimension. All his rare quest items are on full display, and the girl manifests the radiant golden lotus she forged to serve as his new foundation. As the MC meditates, celestial energy begins to temper his physical vessel, transmuting his blood into pure, unadulterated power. It's officially time for a massive breakthrough. Our main lead feels his internal energy nodes igniting brighter than a maxed out skill tree. Their spiritual dual cultivation is perfectly synchronized, And since this is all taking place on the astral plane, clothing is strictly optional, draining the reservoir. The girl confesses that she siphoned all this massive EXP from the ancestor himself while she was refining elixirs for him. Now she's transferring that forbidden fruit directly to our boy, so he can finally solo the legendary boss. The girl warns that the initial surge will be agonizing, but he must endure the trial to evolve. The radiance becomes so blinding it whitewashes the whole server, and the massive upgrade is finally complete. Back in reality, the MC's physical vessel is hovering on autopilot while the remains of the boss attempt to slink away. That creature is now just a pathetic eye on a filthy hand. Lee Yuli approaches to inspect the loot, and the artist definitely understood the assignment with this camera angle. She wonders if the MC blacked out because of the boss, while the hand seizes the opening to retreat, ending up squarely in front of the redhead. Talk about a total Yuno reverse card moment. While the two sisters struggle to process the aftermath, our protagonist is still drifting in the dream realm, replaying the intense cultivation that just occurred. The sky begins raining blood in the form of ancient runes, and every shred of tranquility evaporates. Mingxia looks up and instantly detects the next monstrosity, a world boss level threat emerging from the void. A deafening psychic frequency begins to torment the redhead psyche, and our blue-haired girl is caught in the crossfire as well. From the abyss, a colossal astral projection manifests, and the entity demands to know which lowly rat dared to disrupt his sacred meditation. Lee Yuli knows the MC is still immobilized, and wonders if the dregs of her mana, combined with her sister's will, suffice to stall the enemy. She decides that retreating simply isn't an option. The two sisters channel their remaining essence into a desperate fire combo to avoid getting instantly one-shotted. They land a direct hit right in the monster's center, but the laceration seals instantly. Then the astral palm descends like a terminal meteor. The boss declares that there is zero chance of escape and he will grind them both into dust. The impact is primed to deliver the final finishing blow. Lee Yuli has already accepted the game over screen, and even jokes about settling their petty grudges in the next life. But then our boy intercedes with his new god tier buff fully activated. He unleashes a savage uppercut that shatters the sheer pressure of the attack, and the boss's massive hand cannot withstand the raw damage output from the MC. The ancestor still attempts to act smug, dismissing the MC as a mere ant before lunging with a lethal punch. The collision was earth-shattering, yet the MC had already vanished. So the boss begins scanning the vicinity, growling that there is nowhere for the boy to run. Mingxia is floored by the MC's overwhelming new aura, and even Lee Yuli is baffled by how he ascended to the core formation stage in the blink of an eye. Our hero simply scoffs that it's a long story, and warns the squad that they need to extract back to the hideout before the map logic resets. The MC declares they must fill that abyss with a sacrificial body, but Lee Yuli interjects that brute force alone won't fix this glitch, as they desperately need a sealing enchantment. She instantly swaps to her support class gear and begins weaving a massive illusion that causes the rotting corpses to be vacuumed toward the cave entrance, until finally the passage is entirely obstructed by a grotesque wall of bones. Back at the stronghold, our guy detects some suspicious activity and stops dead in his tracks. There is a tiny blue creature being tormented by a swarm of crows in that pathetic thing shrieks in absolute terror while struggling to evade the vicious pecks of the birds until a voice commands everyone to cease the idiocy. Hoya is visibly shaken to see our boy has returned, and the little fairy instantly snitches that the blacksmith pilfered spirit crystals to unlock a forbidden zone. Rogers tries to decipher what's so game-changing about that area, and the girl reveals that inside its borders, the EXP gain is boosted by 3 times. She attempts to back Huoya into a tight corner to interrogate her on how she even uncovered such a top-secret exploit, but the redhead just stammers out some pathetic excuses. The MC decides to grant a temporary pardon for the theft because his focus is currently locked on a bigger objective. He passes the remaining loot to the little fairy to power up the sect and commands the blacksmith to prioritize crafting god-tier equipment daily, while the dragon sisters manage the divine seed cultivation. The survival strategy continues to accelerate at full throttle, and our boy enters the pavilion to initiate the ultimate grind. The pavilion is truly otherworldly, overflowing with cosmic energy at every turn, and our boy exerts maximum effort to ascend to Golden Core ASAP. He takes a deep breath, but then the vibes shift, and we witness a sinister overlord scolding his incompetent disciple, declaring that his blunder was unforgivable, but there's still a path to salvage the damage. He manifests a grotesque pulsating larva and explains that this calamity centipede will be used to reconstruct the failure's body. The parasite begins to fuse with the man's flesh in a revolting display of gore, and the result is a completely warped mutation with eyes sprouting all over its form. The boss warns that the clock is ticking, and his sole directive now is to hunt down our MC. Meanwhile, another scavenger is soaring like a rocket, acting like he owns the entire sky just because he dropped a fortune on a vintage jetpack. But our hero materializes right behind him, gliding on a celestial flying sword, leaving the guy's jaw on the floor. He tries to push his thrusters to the limit, but the MC is playing a different game now that his cultivation is perfectly synchronized with his physical form. They reach the scavenger tavern, and the jetpack wannabe rushes to land first to secure the lead. He struts and swearing he's still the fastest in the server. Inside, the waitresses in cowgirl outfits flock to see if he'll waste his hard-earned loot on them. The hierarchy is crystal clear. Commoners are restricted to the ground floor, while only VIP whales get to access the upper levels. The jetpack guy is busy deluding himself, dreaming of the day he'll hit rank A and finally flex. Our boy wants zero part of the high life luxury and simply orders a cold dark ale along with a massive meal from the bartender. The one serving him is Hua, a master who can make drinks fly with effortless style, and he has already recognized the legendary MC. He notes that the MC's astronomical potential is being utterly squandered here and commends the kid for solo carrying against 5 monsters and speed running a 2-star quest orders of magnitude above his current level. Our protagonist plays it, cool and humble, claiming he's just a starving rank C brawler looking for scraps. The redhead with the jetpack overhears this and nearly chokes, realizing the MC is a pro-tier smurf. Hua chuckles and recalls that his last payout was a cool 5,000 sand dollars, but the MC points out the captain pockets a 70% tax, and now he's hunting for a 3-star mission. The MC knows that mere pocket change isn't his primary objective at the moment, as he requires massive spirit crystals to buff his waifu squad and prep for the next raid boss. The bartender figures the captain is just another greedy mercenary, but warns that a rank C has zero chance soloing a high-stakes level 3 contract. And the jetpack redhead turns deathly pale just hearing the name of the rank S captain. He immediately plasters on a desperate grin, sensing he's finally found the ultimate carry, and introduces himself as Lu Litian to try and secure a duo partnership. This guy is a veteran member of CLN number 1, a guild boasting nearly 200 members, and our hero begrudgingly accepts the invite, even while trying to maintain his unassuming background character persona. The flyer is absolutely hyped, imagining the two of them will clear the entire map, but Hua interjects with a warning for this mission. The lobby mandates a full 3-man party. The moment they turn around, Lin Yi manifests, a rank C scavenger who looks like she walks straight off the set of a top-tier Mo anime. The jetpack guy immediately folds like a lawn chair and recruits her into the squad without a second thought. With the party finally assembled, the MC demands that Hua assign them the deadliest mission. He wants the hardcore mode cranked up, swarming with mobs and bosses to farm massive EXP. The bartender straight up calls him a lunatic for being a clone of the captain. He presents them with a contract to locate missing children within an eerie forest and warns them that the zone is notorious for being infested with ghosts and monsters. Our hero confidently signs the contract. The UI locks in and the mission is officially active. Even though the redhead is paralyzed with fear regarding supernatural entities, he is still anxious about whether the cute girl can actually survive the impending peril. But the bartender warns that the timer to rescue the children is ticking down fast. He displays the map featuring the navigation routes across the most treacherous deserts. The safe route takes 10 hours, which guarantees mission failure, but Lin Yi strikes a pose as if she's wielding a hidden pay-to-win cash shop artifact. She retrieves a glowing shrimp from her inventory and begins summoning, sailing like she's calling a puppy. Suddenly, the server illuminates and a rift opens in the heavens. A colossal star whale manifests to serve as the squad's legendary transport. The guys are absolutely floored witnessing a rookie with the swiftest mount in the entire game. The redhead assumes she was some high-tier heiress because of the overpriced pet, and Lin Yi's face turns crimson, insisting this creature is merely a friend, while the jetpack guy is struggling to keep up. Our protagonist has already whisked the girl onto his sword. Once they've boarded the creature's back, the stability is comparable to a luxury yacht. She explains that Xiaolan isn't built for speed, but excels at finding secret map shortcuts. The creature ignites its thrusters and tears a spatial rift. Amidst the clouds, the scenery dissolves into a chaotic mess of spatial distortion. Our guy detects a sudden surge of malevolent energy radiating from the vicinity. The Void Forest map has been successfully unlocked. Our hero and the trio finally touch down. The atmosphere here is suffocatingly heavy. The rookie is already trembling like a leaf, recalling the chilling urban legends surrounding this map. She explains this realm was once the Divine Relic Forest, where humans coexisted peacefully in a secluded village. They lived in perfect harmony with the demi-humans. But in a single night, the atmosphere shifted, and every soul met a gruesome, tragic end. Scavengers subsequently purged the demi-humans, branding them the primary culprits, but a young girl witnessed a crimson specter observing the carnage from the shadows. The redhead remains completely skeptical, claiming that ghosts are just a myth, but the rookie states bluntly that this intel comes from a top-tier source. She references the legendary status of a certain captain, a psychic with goddess tier visuals and a reputation for being absolutely savage. The guy's jaw nearly hits the floor at the mention of her name. And Lin Yuo quickly corrects her tone, describing that woman as a highly revered spiritualist. Suddenly, they spot the silhouette of a student darting through the brush. Our protagonist immediately unsheathes his weapon and orders a squad to tail the target. The trail leads directly to a derelict structure in the dead of night. It's a school building that has no business being on this map. And from high above, a pair of sinister eyes is fixed intently on our boy. Our hero commands the squad to move in quickly and scout the interior, but the moment they cross the threshold, the door slams shut, sending a jolt through the team. Outside, eldritch vines begin erupting from the soil, and within seconds, the entire perimeter is sealed by those malevolent plants. The MC activates the illumination on his watch to pierce through the gloom, only to realize the squad has completely vanished. And their comm bracelets are getting zero signal, faint. Eerie giggles begin to resonate throughout the corridor. He demands, "Who's there?" while facing motionless figures. They're just grotesque mannequins piled atop one another. This is 1,000 times more disturbing. Our boy is now on absolute high alert because he catches a disturbing faint sound. He decides it's vital to stay locked in. Without realizing, a colossal shadow is looming right behind him. Just as his instincts flare up, the little girl grips his hand. A young girl is weeping, pleading for him to take her home. The MC finds the situation highly suspicious because his radar failed to ping any threats in the vicinity. There is absolutely zero monster signal detected. He attempts to soothe the trembling child and asks how she ended up lost on such a lethal map. She claims she was in the middle of class when a specter appeared, and the entire room descended into a frantic escape. Our hero inquires about the other students, and she says the boss took them captive. The MC is struggling to analyze her intel about the ghost, while Lu Letian is wandering aimlessly in a pitch-black corridor, shouting for the rest of his squad. Suddenly, he hears a spine-chilling nursery rhyme echoing and decides to infiltrate a room. To determine if the noise is a boss trigger or an NPC, he spots tiny pale hands clapping together in a thick horror movie atmosphere. The room turns malevolent as the singing of phantom children pierces the dark. Slumped on the floor, he discovers Lin Yue unconscious and encircled by those eerie spectral kids. The redhead triggers rage mode to rescue his teammate. The children reveal monstrous visages with ghastly grins, and he unleashes a devastating sweeping slash to see if he can exorcise all the ghosts in one shot. The moment he obliterates the last one, he realizes they were nothing more than cursed straw effigies. Our boy rushes over to stabilize Lin, who is finally regaining consciousness. She stirs, looking dazed and calling out Tian's name, clueless as to how she ended up in this hellhole. The redhead explains that a ghost ambushed her and seizes the moment to play the chivalrous hero. The rookie immediately clings to him for protection, leaving our sidekick completely paralyzed with joy. While a strange, distorted giggle resonates from directly behind them, the girl's visage twists into a literal nightmare and obsidian. Tentacles begin siphoning the HP of the stunned redhead. This poor guy is cooked. The entire situation devolves into a chaotic mess of tangled roots while the perspective shifts to a different corridor. The genuine Lin Yi is wandering in total isolation and desperately attempting to hail the captain, but she's getting zero signal. Suddenly, the echo of footsteps rings out. Li Yunsheng manifests and claims he's finally tracked her down. But the girl is completely bewildered, because now there are two identical versions of him on screen. Both begin bickering and without warning. One gets blindsided with a brutal right hook that pierces straight through his skull as if that lunatic was composed of nothing but smoke. Our boy steps up to play the bodyguard role and commands the girl to take cover behind him, but then yet another towering clone emerges behind them, swearing he's the real deal. The girl clocks the deception and decides she's officially finished with this psychological nonsense, immediately toggling into combat mode since she's realized they're all elaborate fakes. She tries to intercept the monster's brainwaves, but their mental frequency is entirely encrypted, and the abominations persist with the spine-chilling delusion that each of them is the authentic MC. She even flashes back to berating her pet pig about hitting the gym so it doesn't end up as bacon. She clarifies that she's possessed the gift of reading the minds of nuclear monsters since she was just a kid, but these bizarre MC replicas are completely breaking the system rules. Sensing the tide turning, she summons Xiaoliu, and the massive wild boar rampages in like it's time for a feast. The beast isn't interested in a dialogue and begins pulverizing the shadows on the wall without a single shred of mercy. It's a display of pure unadulterated rage. The clones retreat in terror, and the girl is left baffled because the wind felt way too easy. Then another child appears, clearing a path and guiding our hero directly toward a hidden mystery. When they finally reach the heart of the anomaly, the air becomes suffocatingly heavy. The little girl starts weeping and begs our boy to rescue everyone, but the MC sees through the act and cuts her down without hesitation. He realizes the little girl doesn't possess a single spark of a soul, meaning this elaborate ruse was merely a ploy to lure him into a deadly trap. Our hero stormed the den with explosive momentum and discovers the children imprisoned in cocoons, including a familiar face among the victims. But the master of the house detests intruders and the ancient roots, braid together to manifest a colossal behemoth that makes the MC look like a mere plaything by comparison. The abomination attempts to crush him, but our boy's reflexes are razor sharp, and he instantaneously unleashes a pressurized air slash to carve a path. He begins severing the cocoons from the rafters, and the redhead collapses to the floor in a state of total dazed disorientation, while the MC confronts the mountain of roots. He warns that they are currently inside the creature's gullet and commands the guy to evacuate the others. The sidekick nearly suffers a heart attack, convinced he's witnessed a specter, and is absolutely floored by our hero's raw power. But before they can even catch their breath, the entity begins to telepathically scan them, copying every deep-seated trauma they possess. The monster doesn't just mimic what it sees, it excavates the darkest scars in everyone's psyche. But Lin Yue suddenly arrives with her ferrule boar to tip the scales of the battle. The beast rampages forward to trample the roots with overwhelming force, and the redhead is completely speechless at the sight of this mutant hog with hide as hard as granite. The girl is clearly having the time of her life atop the beast, treating this nightmare like a casual walk in the park. Outside, the true puppet master watches the structure being devoured and gloats that the nutrients have finally arrived. This galaxy-faced antagonist activates his ultimate endgame, triggering the entire building to begin constricting and crushing every living soul inside. Even our protagonists, clones, cannot escape being suffocated by that suffocating mountain of roots. The lunatic explains that he spent a full century cultivating this grotesque nuclear tree, waiting for it to bloom so he could finally harvest the spoils. The tree resembles a gargantuan onion in the heart of the forest, and he's hyper-focused on its ripening fruit, which looks more like a mutated pulsing brain. He is vibrating with sinister excitement, claiming the tree requires only a single day to yield its harvest. And even if the entire grove perishes afterward, dozens of these fruits make the sacrifice worthwhile. But suddenly, the sadistic gleam in the villain's eyes evaporates because the fruits begin to wither and shrivel right before his face. They turn into dry ashen husks within seconds. The antagonist starts to spiral into a panic, desperately trying to identify the thief who is siphoning his precious energy. Suddenly, the terrain detonates, blasting everything into oblivion, and our protagonist emerges alongside the wild boar to rescue those who were imprisoned. The villain is absolutely floored, unable to comprehend how a mere rank C brawler could slip through his clutches. The maniac attempts to retaliate with that celestial galaxy energy, but the MC glances toward the heavens and realizes the threat goes much deeper. A colossal hand erupts from a rift and attempts to pulverize the wild boar. Our boy tosses a rope and commands the beast to evacuate the children as far away as possible without ever looking back. He lunges at the villain, who now manifests several spatial tentacles and begins to weave through the carnage to deliver the finishing blow. Our boy unleashes a catastrophic burst of emerald energy and pierces straight through the villain's chest. The guy doesn't even flinch, arrogantly stating that even a legendary rank A would struggle to leave a scratch on him. He's actually impressed by our hero's raw talent and decides to repay the gesture in kind. He throws a punch the size of a skyscraper, and the MC is forced to brace against the weight of the entire world. What an earth-shattering collision. Our boy crashes into the dirt in a bloodied, battered state, realizing this antagonist is essentially a god-tier immortal. The kid is in deep water and knows that reinforcements won't arrive in time to save him. Luckily, he still possesses a lethal trump card and ignites a high-tier talisman that begins reconstructing his body to overhaul his power from the inside out. He ascends into a demigod, radiating an aura that demands absolute submission. The villain is actually exhilarated by the transformation and decides that the match is finally getting interesting, unleashing another spatial distortion punch to test our hero's newly evolved form. Our protagonist is now operating on a completely different echelon and blitzes the villain. The madman can't even track where the incoming strike is originating. That is the MC's true speed, and he realizes this new spectral blade bypasses all physical defenses. The villain desperately tries to stabilize, but the crushing pressure is simply too horrific. The two titans clash head-on, and the impact generates a gargantuan shockwave. That is raw speed in its purest essence. And our boy rips through the enemy as if he were nothing but wet paper, leaving the antagonist completely shell-shocked, because his ironclad defenses have evaporated into thin air. However, the MC senses his timer is running out and needs to execute a finishing move immediately. The guy is shredded to pieces on the dirt, and our hero sticks a stylish landing. But this freaky entity is essentially composed of living mercury and admits he never expected the MC to activate such a massive power-up. They realize this creature is way too OP, leaving only one option, making him vanish from existence entirely. The villain goes into full throttle mode and begins spawning an entire army of clones to tip the scales back in his favor. Our boy decides two can play at that game and weaves a hand seal, summoning a terrifying Golden Cavalry Legion to completely turn the tables. It's a 1,000-man blitz and it obliterates the villain's clones without a shred of mercy. That absolute freak descends into a panic when he realizes the MC also wields a broken summoning cheat code and there is officially nowhere left to run. The catastrophic strike lands directly on the original host, but the surging energy bar of RG also hits 0 at that precise moment. He reverts to his base form, convinced he has finally wiped the area clean. But the ominous blue radiance pulsing from the dirt is a dead giveaway that this worm has a phase 2. Our protagonist plummets straight into a bottomless void and spawns in a bizarre junkyard of corpses. Down in the abyss, a crazed, long-necked woman is stalking intruders while complaining that her hunt is getting boring. This female villain is the literal definition of a red flag. But her character design proves the author was definitely cooking with those visuals. She is flanked by a gargantuan centipede bristling with eldritch eyes, and suddenly a red-eyed geezer manifests, claiming he caught the scent of a woman nearby, as the monstrous squad is. Congregating, a shadow blurs past and decapitates the old man. The female villains are left completely shell-shocked by the sudden ambush, and the old man's severed head becomes a permanent floor decoration. A master radiating and overwhelming, suffocating aura appears with her zombie pet looking unmistakably like a psycho who has completely snapped. The scene cuts back to the spatial antagonist who abducted our boy into a celestial dimension and is fuming that the MC sabotaged his entire harvest. He decides to probe RG's psyche, placing a hand on his skull to download his entire history. The villain assumes he's just a generic orphan with 0 potential, but stumbles upon a memory in the kid's mind that sends him into a total spiral. The villain realizes the boy's memories aren't from this server and witnesses a pure nightmare of fallen gods and towers of rotting corpses at the center of the abyss. A celestial golden entity manifests with power on a completely transcendent level. The freak is absolutely vibrating with excitement at this discovery. He transmutes his arm into a wicked blade and begins weighing whether to obliterate the MC or preserve the kid as a rare legendary specimen. But suddenly, the fabric of space itself begins to crack, and a fierce pink-haired woman materializes, demanding the villain surrender our boy immediately. That absolute freak cannot process the fact that his unbreakable barrier was blown away merely by the sheer authority of her voice. And the girl makes it crystal clear that she has finally tracked down her target. She lunges in with a devastating flying kick, unleashing a punch that must have rattled his very soul. The freak is sent hurtling across the landscape and craters into the ground, completely losing his grip on the hostage. Our boy is in a terminal freefall, drifting in total unconsciousness. But the pink-haired warrior blurs in for the rescue. She catches the MC in a bridal carry. And honestly, he is beyond lucky to be rescued by such a god-tier waifu. The kid finally stirs awake, but he's already feeling frustrated for failing to personally execute that monster. The captain is visibly stunned when he mentions that the bastard is essentially immortal. The spatial villain over there is already regenerating himself as if his body were composed of living mercury. And that bizarre tree has sprouted a fruit that resembles a gargantuan brain. The captain isn't interested in a lore dump and immediately charges in to pulverize that evil seed, causing the entire structure to buckle. Suddenly, Lin, E and the massive wild boar arrive as backup, confirming that the survivors are in the clear. The redhead freezes at the sight of the pulsating fruit, and the MC clarifies that the tree is abducting people to cultivate this biological anomaly. The captain decides the only solution is to use her fist to delete that fruit from existence. The mass begins to pulsate in a grotesque rhythm, leaving the entire squad completely bewildered. High above a spatial portal, tears open amidst the carnage and begins to warp those fruits away. They touch down in a completely desolate wasteland, where the galaxy-faced antagonist awaits the delivery. He confesses he was nearly obliterated in the previous skirmish, but the momentary peace is shattered because the Overlord manifests with a suffocating aura demanding to inspect the spoils of the harvest. He clarifies that he only secured 7 of the fruits, because our protagonist and the captain wreaked absolute havoc on his plans. Chang'an Ding accepts the remnants of the harvest and immediately scrutinizes the goods to verify if the energy density is top tier. He delivers the quintessential villainous monologue, declaring that the time is nigh to liberate everyone from that cursed sealed realm. The scene cuts to the Scavenger Guild headquarters, where the stakes are reaching a boiling point. A high-level summit is underway with the most elite hunters across the entire region. Guildmaster Min Gyu, who sports a youthful look despite being an SS rank beast, officially convenes the meeting. But Hugh, the living embodiment of pure arrogance, scoffs that he's too busy single-handedly saving the world. Uncle Long immediately checks his ego, suggesting he's likely just out on a shallow date instead. That shameless guy doesn't even bother with an alibi, claiming that's exactly how he replenishes his mana. The horned cat girl is left dazed and bewildered, while the pink-haired captain is literally drooling in the middle of the briefing, and the guildmaster resolves to just ignore her antics and proceed with the agenda. The kid gets straight to the grim reality. The villainous ending is on the verge of shattering the seal for an all-out invasion. The atmosphere becomes unbearably tense, and the armored warrior slams his fist onto the table, roaring that he's primed for total war. Hugh is still acting clueless, asking, who even is this guy? But the masked sellsword instantly shuts down the disrespect warning that the legendary villain could solo everyone in this room while laughing. The realization hits that a game over is almost a mathematical certainty, and the kid confirms the dire odds. The win rate hasn't hit 0 yet, but the path ahead is going to be hellish. The guildmaster continues monitoring our boy's growth from the shadows, and maintains the firm belief that he is the sole remaining wildcard for a true victory. The entire squad transports that grotesque fruit to the guild's classified underground lab, and our boy materializes shortly after. Demanding to know what this cursed fruit actually is, Dr. Guo immediately toggles into full bookworm mode and reveals that the entity possesses its own sentient consciousness. Lin Yi stands there in absolute awe, transfixed by the scale of the fruit pulsating inside the tank. Our protagonist feels more bewildered than ever, prompting the doctor to drop a lore bomb on nuclear trees. Essentially, it's a parasitic plant that has ascended into a god-tier elite beast. The infection starts with a single seed poisoning the soil, followed by centuries of relentlessly siphoning the life force of the entire forest just to sprout. All that stolen concentrated energy eventually condenses into this singular living plant brain. Our boy is suspicious of the sudden wisdom of Lin Yi, who suddenly falls into a deep trance, realizing those repressed memories belong to her father. Without warning, the entity begins to vibrate violently, and the doctor realizes the fruit is about to undergo birth. The scene cuts to the snake woman lounging atop a literal mountain of fresh corpses while this female exorcist attempts to stabilize the situation. And by the way, her character design is absolute goals. She sends a high-tier living corpse charging into the fray, unleashing a soul-shattering slash intended to rip the villain apart. But that witch remains completely unscathed and openly mocks the pathetic attempt. The antagonist doesn't even flinch, letting her zombie thrall obliterate that poor guy in a single hit. The azure-haired beauty stands frozen as she watches her ally get completely erased without even perceiving the speed of the attack. The exorcist immediately clarifies that this isn't some run-of-the-mill living corpse. She elaborates that there is a strict power hierarchy from the basic white Jiangshi all the way up to the flying Jiangshi, but the one standing here is at the absolute peak of the food chain, the legendary Jiangshi king. The terrified girl realizes she's spawned into the wrong server and desperately attempts to flee, only to be slashed into ribbons mid-dash. It's a total game over for her, and our female exorcist seizes the opening to harvest the rare loot that just dropped. The exorcist notes that the Jiangshi king is still snarling, and the culprit is this gargantuan, grotesque centipede that just crashed the party. But the real co-op action is unfolding elsewhere. Our rose-haired captain is getting absolutely bodied by a kid trailing with a pathetic 3-0 score in their video game, while the two of them are lost in their gaming session. The MC is stuck on janitor duty sweeping up the trash. The captain, who clearly dumped all her stat points into charisma, claims the kid's only mission is to keep her entertained. The guy is so triggered, he snaps the broom in half, fuming that the loot from his last quest was total garbage. He desperately needs core crystals ASAP if he plans to evolve his power. And the little girl suddenly reveals that she's aware of a secret location perfect for farming those high-tier items. Our hero can't believe his insane luck and heads straight toward a region known as Chaos Canyon. The guy nosedives like a rocket, determined to bypass the Vipers and reach the labyrinth. He deploys several soul clones to scout the perimeter, and finally discovers a literal crystal paradise. Infinite loot unlocked. He begins frantically stuffing his inventory to the brim. But out of the blue, a massive magic circle erupts in front of him, and a cryptic little enchantress materializes to gatekeep his farming session. The girl looks like a top-tier anime mage, and our boy instantly identifies this monster. It's Mo Ling, a high-tier elite rank A powerhouse from the Scavenger Guild. He's baffled as to why she's lurking in this wasteland, but the girl looks like she's strictly here for business. Meanwhile, in the skirmish with the centipede, the stakes are sky high, and the Jiangshi king unleashes a devastating strike, shredding the beast like paper as monster guts fly everywhere. Absolute unadulterated carnage. The colossal creature is a living nightmare, sporting 1,000 ravenous hands. The exorcist mage perceives her summon has reached his breaking point and bites her finger to channel her ultimate energy, then activates her heavenly eye to scrutinize that abomination. The artifact glows with a blinding brilliance, and she finally pinpoints its fatal flaw. She rings the ritual bell and commands the Jiangshi to strike the core. Xiaojian awakens into a lethal projectile of pure, unbridled wrath, shredding the centipede to ribbons and drenching the entire zone in a rain of gore. She seals the ritual with a final execution decree. slicing the monster into 1,000 fragments in a heartbeat. Finally, the monstrosity is completely obliterated, and the Jiangxi king can finally stand down. The exorcist mage is drained of all spiritual energy, and her physical form just gives out. Fortunately, the Jiangxi king was there to catch his mistress before she hit the dirt. Meanwhile, sinister rumors spread like wildfire among the winged terrors they have conspired to summon the legendary ancestor to wipe the entire map. She traverses through a spatial rift straight to the immortal refinement valley, and two kids manifest in a total panic seeing the cat girl's aura has bottomed out. She burned through a larger chunk of her lifespan then. She actually possessed just to solo carry against that monster. And since the sect leader is currently in secluded cultivation, defending the base is left entirely to the support faction. The kid instantaneously triggers a high-tier healing spell, declaring that restoring her to peak condition will be a total cakewalk, and utilizes that legendary flower to mend the cat girl. The visual effects are so incredibly vivid. It looks like she's undergoing a legendary visual skin upgrade. She levitates upward, fully rejuvenated, and sticks the landing, feeling like she just downed 10 liters of high-grade caffeine. And the kid clarifies that the celestial flower has maxed out her vitality stats, but the atmosphere turns suffocating because their secret hideout has been compromised, and the other little disciple panics since the master hasn't completed his cultivation cycle yet. The cat girl flashes the confident smirk of a warrior who specializes in solving every problem with overwhelming brute force, and our red-haired sidekick cannot even begin to comprehend this bizarre magic and hamster tier combo. He attempts to stealthily slip away in soul form, clutching his precious loot, but his luck is so abysmal that a stray crystal tumbles and exposes his exact coordinates. Mo Ling instantly senses an intruder nearby, and our hero can already feel the game over screen looming over him. She charges her signature ultimate astral burst, radiating brighter than a dying star, and unleashes a strike designed to delete the poor guy from the server. He manifests drenched in cold sweat, screaming that he's a friendly before eating another massive hit. 10 minutes later, the chaos finally subsides. As he frantically clears up the misunderstanding, she realizes that the shadow was merely a decoy, and our protagonist confirms it's his unique skill. Mo Ling begrudgingly accepts the apology and tells him to scram with whatever scraps he scavenged, but drops a chilling warning: if he leaks a single detail about this encounter, he'll be permanently deleted in real life. Our hero knows better than to test her and bails with the loot before she changes her mind. The mammoth is livid, demanding to know why she let a petty thief walk with the bag, but the cat girl is operating on a completely different level and begins performing an insane high-tier ritual with the remaining crystals. The power is so immense that the very atmosphere begins to spin into a violent swirling vortex, and she commands the ascension process to begin. The visual effects look like a high-budget anime, opening with every fiber of her being glowing brilliantly. She successfully completes the transformation, fully prepped to solo any world boss that dares to spawn on the map. The mammoth is floored seeing the master just hit a new level cap. She laments that the crystal stash is totally drained after that upgrade and has already mapped out the next raid directly into the heart of the demon realm. The objective now is to completely purge the map of those irritating pests, and she tears open a portal to deploy immediately. The red-haired guy can only watch from the sidelines, trying to wrap his head around that lore dump, and decides to carve his own path toward the immortal refinement valley. Suddenly, the scene cuts back to our boy, awakens and is welcomed warmly like a classic isekai protagonist. Our MC's harem manifests in full force, celebrating that their master has finally awakened. He is completely bewildered, trying to decipher what this squad wants from him. The little girl with the armband suddenly appears, announcing that she has joined the lobby, and the exorcist mage steps forward, warning that their base is about to be cooked. She explains that a collision with the notorious Wutong ancestor is absolutely inevitable, and reveals the legendary items they looted to overhaul the plan. Now it's time for our hero to undergo some brutal training to facilitate a record-breaking level up. Ling Diep begins the refining process to forge the loot into a high-tier essence pill, and after finishing, she hands over the legendary artifact that triples his farming speed. The MC crunches the numbers and realizes that with these stacked buffs, the EXP gain will be absolutely cracked. Then she takes the item and forces it down the MC's throat, warning that the clock is ticking. So the boy just has to tank the pain. The cultivation process ignites. The atmosphere in his mental space begins to simmer while the narrator seizes the chance to hype the plot with top-tier waifus hovering around him. The heat is terrifying, and the waifus can feel him reaching his breaking point until the MC shatters his limits, successfully evolving out of thin air. A massive sword manifests alongside his radiant golden core. The MC understands that now. He is operating on a completely different power tier, but then a golden entity appears, stating that his disciples are finally useful for once. The MC identifies him as the former sect leader of the Qiankun sect, and is beyond hyped. A assuming he's still active on the server, but the spirit drops a truth bomb. He has been dead for a very long time, and all that remains is a lingering fragment of a soul preserved within the bracelet. He gazes at our boy with the knowing smile of someone ready to pass the torch to a worthy successor, remarking that the kid's rapid growth has surpassed all expectations. The master decides it's officially time to teach the MC some truly god-tier techniques and begins downloading forbidden knowledge directly into his consciousness. The radiance is so blinding it looks like the screen might melt. Our hero opens his eyes in the physical world, sporting the heterochromatic eyes that every OP anime protagonist flexes, feeling his entire being overflow with raw power. After finally solidifying his nascent soul, the waifu squad erupts in celebration, as their own energy reserves have been maxed out. But Ling Diep drops a reality check warning that the Wutong ancestor is still a raid boss on a broken level. Our boy simply flashes the confident smirk of a player hiding his true power level. Cut to the Bone Dungeon in the alternate realm where Ling materializes alongside her mystical mammoth primed for a slaughter. The mascot warns that the Bone Legion is about to respawn. She calmly states it's not time yet, and a tragic flashback begins, revealing the little girl had awakened her latent magic since she was only 5 years old. She was completely isolated, plunging into this bizarre world and spending a decade soloing high-level monsters just to find her mother. Her mother was a legendary mage who vanished into a rift, and our girl swore she wouldn't meet her end until they were finally reunited. But the lethality doubles with every descending floor, and the mass resurrection process ignites a literal ocean of undead skeletons that the siege becomes an impossible wave to withstand. Ling just lets out a slight smirk as if she's already rigged the map, dodging a heavy strike that nearly sent the mammoth back to the lobby. She hovers above the carnage, scanning for the puppet master of this mess, and decides to end this pitiful farce with a wide-range lightning bolt, turning the zone into a massive bone barbecue. She realizes that the boss typically spawns only after the mobs are purged, yet the room remains empty. Suddenly, the skeletons begin radiating an eerie green hue, and the Legion re-enters the server with a cracked speed buff. Worst part is, they've developed lightning resistance, turning this encounter into a total nightmare. So now it's time to showcase the god-tier skills she unlocked during her last level up. The girl summons the absolute zero of the ice goddess and declares these bag of bones won't touch her. She triggers her ultimate Ice Age 2, flash freeze the entire map and transform the army into literal popsicles. The skeletal popsicles rain from the ceiling and shatter into dust. The ancient mammoth instantly seizes the golden opportunity to vacuum up all the double drop loot. Ling finds herself intrigued by these unique crystals and starts suspecting the MC. She's getting a vibe that the guy's gatekeeping some kind of broken secret regarding how he farms at such a ridiculous rate. But the celebration is cut short because a surge of negative energy begins to swell. The skeletons didn't just return to the lobby. They are amalgamating to manifest something far more demonic. The floor boss finally spawns, and its sheer scale is absolutely preposterous. Enter the Skeleton Lord, the unadulterated nightmare of any low-tier noob. The monstrosity lunges, unleashing a tectonic strike, aiming to delete our girl from existence, but she deploys a shimmering golden barrier and effortlessly tanks the hit. However, her defenses begin to splinter, and the sheer force sends the poor girl hurtling back like she's weightless. She fights to regain her equilibrium mid-air, and immediately locks in her next rotation to avoid a total wipe. The girl dumps her entire skill kit onto the beast, but it has absolutely zero impact. The problem? The boss is immune to magic damage. Yet she doesn't flinch for a second. She decides to sacrifice the souls of fallen bosses. She previously soloed summoning the squad to flip the script. Ling rallies the entire gang to execute the boss, and the summoned squad charges forward with unbridled rage. The one-eyed titan Jap delivers a devastating haymaker to the skeleton's ribcage while the Flower Queen deploys her spectral vines to bind the monstrosity in place. It's a literal infinite combo. However, the summons operate on a ticking clock, and our girl requires a definitive finishing blow, so she eyes the mammoth with a lethal new intent. She ignites her advanced pet buffing skill, unleashing a colossal inferno of aura that envelops the little creature, transforming this pet into the map's newest nightmare. The tiny mouse evolves into a gargantuan Shadow Soul bear, and Ling commands it to radiate and obliterate everything, while the remaining summons pin the skeleton down, leaving the raid boss completely exposed and defenseless. It stands paralyzed, awaiting its doom. Our empowered pet blitzes toward the target and detonates the monster's physical form into 1,000 shards. The titan collapses into a pile of rubble on the floor, and the bear lets out a triumphal roar, but out of the blue manifests a skull wreathed in azure flames hovering ominously in the center, and Ling realizes the bastard hasn't been deleted yet. Ling instantaneously warns that as long as the cranium remains intact, it will keep respawning in the lobby indefinitely. Suddenly, the skull begins to pulsate and discharges lightning bolts that blast the bear out of bounds. The nightmare intensifies as the boss begins siphoning the other, summons to reconstruct. Its physical vessel using her own team's energy, the most broken scam in history. Now the abomination has reached a gargantuan scale and is fully buffed with the squad's collective strength. Tudou is absolutely livid at this cheat code, but she orders it to chug a potion and kite the monster for 60 seconds. Tudou realizes her master is preparing to unleash that god-tier technique and tells her to relax because it has everything under control. It slams the buff potion in a single gulp, and the beast frame erupts with volatile power. The bear blitzes the amalgamated boss and starts throwing hands like there's no tomorrow, while the behemoth, our pet, is desperately tanking hits from the unstoppable monster. Moling initiates the ritual for an ancient high-tier incantation. She channels her entire mana pool into the crystal, and summons the legendary Valkyrie, a divine entity summoned to obliterate the boss before her physical vessel collapses. She only has a 10-second window for the decisive finisher and lunges into the ultimate strike while the bear continues to soak up the damage. Our bear is barely restraining the behemoth, but its eyes widen as its energy reserves hit zero. Everything instantly resets, and the mascot reverts back into a tiny mammoth. Our girl is left completely exposed mid-air. Yet she still risks it all to unleash the lethal slash. The skeleton desperately struggles to avoid being erased, and the sheer collision of power makes the entire realm quake. But the cursed skull narrowly evades the blow. Our heroine is utterly shell-shocked that the boss dodged her ultimate move, but out of nowhere, a cerulean blur streaks across the battlefield and pulverizes the remaining fragments of the skeleton. Attempting to reassemble, Mo Ling stands frozen, failing to comprehend how that clone bypassed her, and our boy suddenly materializes, asking if she sustained any injuries only to get immediately slapped, while our mage curses him into oblivion, without missing a single beat amidst the sea of loot. Somewhere in the distance, the actual MC realizes that the situation has escalated. His original plan was merely to deploy a clone to scout the crystal drops, but the clone required direct physical contact to penetrate Mo Ling's defensive barrier. Our guy is dying of pure cringe because his clone supposedly assisted Mo Xiaobei by touching a spot he absolutely shouldn't have. And now he's terrified he'll be labeled a total creep. Meanwhile, the Tree of Rebirth is manifesting at a truly terrifying velocity, and our boy just stands there, transfixed by the rapidly evolving tree. Li Yuli arrives to deliver a status report. She clarifies that the massive tree is technically still just a tiny sprout, and the other disciples have depleted nearly all the spirit stones for high-level pill refining. The energy reserves have officially reached their limit. The glaring issue is that the next raid boss at the Ascension Gate is still far too powerful, but Li Yuli vows to do whatever it takes to safeguard her master. Then the chaotic red-haired girl bursts into the room with crazy energy, hijacking the conversation while Li Yuli wonders what insane scheme that wild girl has cooked up this time. She inquires if the master still possesses that specific immortal pill he granted her previously. Our protagonist is completely clueless as to what she's referencing until the horrifying realization hits that crazy girl had actually swallowed a live grenade, mistaking the explosive for a cultivation tonic. She even flashes a cheeky finger heart, claiming the energy kick was absolutely legendary. The MC's mind completely shatters, realizing she ate a literal nuke, but then a brilliant epiphany strikes him. Nuclear energy is functionally equivalent to mana within this bizarre world, and he remembers that in the wasteland where he originated. This radioactive junk was scattered everywhere. The tree is soon surrounded by high-grade grenades, and our protagonist can't comprehend the fact that this scrap metal is actually the ultimate power source. The red-haired girl is already hypercharged, concentrating concentrated fire essence in her palms and blasting it all toward the heavens. The resulting impact is sheer madness, and the raw nuclear radiation begins to supercharge the tree's growth. In a desolate realm, the dark Shadow reclines upon his grim throne, enduring the pathetic whimpering of his freakish underlings. Those creatures are vibrating with absolute terror while desperately trying to explain that the MC had outside help, but the Overlord of Darkness has zero patience for our losers. Pitiful excuses. He hoists his skeletal bony hand, preparing to delete those useless NPCs from existence. The fools are obliterated before they can even plead, and Ding is officially fed up with the incompetence, labeling his subordinates as total trash while manifesting a grotesque new form. From that pulsing purple slime, a sinister spectral clone manifests, primed for a bloodbath, and the antagonist declares that he's officially entering the fray himself. Scene shift. We witness several eerie incubation pods where Dr. Shu is being kept on high-tech life support. Suddenly, he bolts his eyes open, realizing he's successfully respawned. A shadowy figure emerges, remarking that they've been anticipating the doctor's awakening for ages. But the situation spiral into chaos at the tree as a pitch-black mist consumes the entire area, leaving our protagonist in total shock. Our hero is completely shell-shocked by what he discovers. Before him stands a grotesque Warped clone of that nuclear tree and the brain-shaped fruits begin to pulsate violently. One of them detonates. And the harem don't even have a split second to react as a lethal blur streaks past at a terrifying velocity. But the MC locks onto the threat and launches a shimmering energy lasso to snag the runaway, exposing a wooden entity with a truly hideous face, which our protagonist snatches to verify if this loot is actually worth the hype. Lee Yuli scrutinizes the drop and claims this thing can barely be classified as a treasure. To her eyes, it's a wood spirit, but it possesses a dangerously unstable aura. Legend dictates these fruits require centuries to fully ripen, typically yielding a legendary elixir or the offspring of a divine beast, but every few hundred years. One of these unique spirits is born, and they are usually god-tier geniuses in human form, capable of absolutely limitless growth. However, the specimen our boy hooked doesn't exactly look like the world's most intelligent life form. The red-haired Spitfire suspects that the excess nuclear radiation caused this poor creature to glitch out. So she summons Xiaobaiko to attempt a link, and the boy materializes instantly, triggering his unique skill to commune with Flora. The boy is floored by what he witnesses, the hideous creature. Ugh, that hideous look was just a disguise to ward off the curious, and now she has unveiled her true divine form. A radiant little light fairy, Baiko explains that this is an incredibly rare species that undergoes a total metamorphosis as it matures. Meanwhile, in the Scavenger Guild's high-tech lab, shattered glass erupts from a massive punch as guards scramble for backup because the mutant brain has vanished. They scour the facility but find nothing. Suddenly, a lethal branch skews through a soldier's chest, and a brutal massacre ignites with jagged roots, bursting from the floor to impale everything in sight. The laboratory morphs into a grisly slaughterhouse in seconds. The missing brain actually birthed this biological horror, and Dr. Guo urgently informs the red-haired girl that the fruit of the nuclear tree has finally emerged. The madman stands there completely shell-shocked, and when he finally looks up, he's staring down the lab's new ultimate nightmare. We cut back to the Hellmage, who is relentlessly hunting the MC. Some brave soul tries their luck and hurls a massive heavy blade at him, but the monstrosity doesn't even flinch as the cold metal whistles past. The bastard even mockingly taunts them, asking if that was their pathetic master plan. But he ends up getting sliced cleanly in half before he can even finish his laugh. The creature begins to regenerate instantaneously, and the arrogant bastard even splits into two to make the encounter twice as lethal. Our protagonist is stunned to witness that his slash was completely ineffective, but Lee clarifies that the thing is merely a puppet clone, not the actual raid boss. She unsheathes her blade and vows she will hack that abomination to atoms until absolutely nothing remains. The exorcist commands Xiaojiang to engage, and the little zombie blitzes forward at terminal velocity, piercing straight through the clone's torso. But the monster is tired of being a literal punching bag and orders his forces to focus all fire on the girl, unleashing a lethal rain of thorns in every direction, turning the poor girl into a human pincushion. The clone seizes the opening to end it all, and savages Xiaojiang without a shred of mercy. In classic final boss fashion, our zombie boy finally ends up sprawled across the dirt. Our protagonist observes that the Wutong ancestor is a monstrously tough opponent and resolves to deploy the forbidden technique the sect leader bestowed upon him. He unleashes a torrential rain of golden blades upon the clones, and the creatures liquefy into purple puddles. But then the goo begins to bubble. The villain scoffs that those attacks merely fuel his evolution and facilitate an infinite army. He brands our boy a thief and declares a total victory. But the MC questions if he truly believes he's attained more power. The boy displays the confident smirk of a player who predicted the enemy's every move and reveals that the girls were nothing more than illusions designed to bait the villain into a lethal trap. Wutong completely loses it. He can feel his mana reserves being drained to absolute zero. They are currently trapped within the MC's pill furnace, and he clarifies that since the main body refuses to die, the only remaining option is to smelt the bastard until he is refined into pure essence. Hoya steps in to crank up the temperature, and immediately initiates the final seal, summoning holy fire to incinerate the villain's soul. The crazed villain is still cackling, vowing that mortal flames cannot harm him, but then he realizes it's genuine holy fire, and pure panic takes hold. In a distant realm, Dr. Shu tries to decipher the identity of the madman with a cosmic face like a cosmic galaxy standing before him. The antagonist with the galaxy face claims the doctor is too brilliant to waste, stating he saved his life because he requires a specific favor. The doctor views himself as nothing but a patched up pile of scrap. But the stranger gestures toward the tank nearby, revealing the woman he once loved. Dr. Shu is utterly shell-shocked because he vividly remembers her passing ages ago. The villain cuts to the chase. If he cooperates, he will resurrect that woman and fully restore his shattered body. The doctor takes the bait instantly and demands to know the plan. The man's objective is deceptively simple. He requires the doctor to engineer a method for replicating human abilities. Meanwhile, in a different sector, a hand eerily phases through the solid wall, its Moling utilizing her spectral phasing technique to infiltrate the chamber unannounced. She declares that she has finally tracked down this Li Yunxing fellow who is currently sawing logs, totally oblivious to the lethal threat closing in.